Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started. Okay, I want to say thank you, first of all, for giving up your Friday afternoon and coming down to our orientation. Most of you have met me. I am Dee Bermudez, and I am the field coordinator for field experiences here at UMKC. Tonight we're going to cover just about everything you'll need to know for the next semester for student teaching and being a cooperating mentor teacher. The very first thing we're going to cover is some of the information that you are going to need now and in May for your certification. This is Gail Metcalf-Chartel, and she is our certification officer here at UMKC, and she's going to do the nitty-gritty on how to make sure you get certified in May.
With luck. I think, how many of you attended the Professional Development Day and saw Brad's presentation? Okay, so this will be kind of a repeat for some of that. I'm also going to leave a handout down here in front for you to pick up later that covers everything, or most everything, that you'll need for Missouri and Kansas certification. The one thing that you need to know, Missouri has gone to an online system. And for some of you who've already registered as a substitute teacher, you've seen how it goes. I'm going to go through the website with luck and show you how exactly you register online. It won't, you can do that as early as now, but it won't be complete until I verify that you have all of your incompletes taken care of, you have your degree awarded, if you're pursuing a degree while you're earning your teacher credential. Verify that your test scores are in and they're passing, and all of those things. But you can start putting the information in now, and then everything becomes much easier toward the end of the semester when you're flustered with the end of student teaching and so forth. So the website that you'll go to is www.dese.gov. Okay. And when you go to that, you'll end up at this website, and you'll go to Web Applications. And Web Applications will hopefully open. Okay. So homepage, that's what should have happened when I clicked on the Web Applications. They are still overwhelmed with this new process in Jefferson City. You'll start here, and if you have a username, you would type it in for those of you who have substitute certification or have done any preliminary work. If you've not, you'll go to the register button, and you'll click on that, and it will ask for some basic information, your social security number, your name, your address, your current email address, and so forth. You'll then come to an Office of Educator Quality, and they've changed this website somewhat since we put together the PowerPoint. It's basically the educator certification system that you'll click on, and it will come up and look like this, except your information should be in it, or a lot of it will be, because you've registered to create your own password and username and so forth. You'll notice there are several different places with arrows here for fingerprint information, Praxis 2 information, and whatever this says, the applications information. When you go on, you're going to fill this out, and then you'll go to a menu that says Education, and you'll click on that. In Education, you're going to select UMKC, so you'll pick Missouri, it's from the state, pick UMKC, and then put in an estimated last date of attendance and an estimated GPA. I will be calculating the exact GPAs and so forth for you. And then you'll click Add. Whoops. You'll click Add, and if you've attended, how many of you have attended more than one school? Pretty much everybody. More than 2, more than 3, more than 4. I find you all. It's amazing. You have to add, every time you have gone to another school, you have to add another segment, and I ask that you do it rather than me doing it. If you went to Longview, you'll pick Missouri Longview, or Johnson County Community College, or Texas Tech, or University of Oklahoma. You're going to put in the same kind of information so that when you're finished, and you'll keep adding and saving, adding and saving. And then what happens when I get to the online part, what I'll do is put in the final date of attendance for each of those institutions. I'll also be putting in the final GPA from each of those institutions. So chances are everybody has one GPA from an institution that's usually not too good, and everything else is great. But that goes in. And you'll also, at the end of this, there's a place where it will ask you to hit accept. And okay. And when you get to that, you're adding your GPA. You'll answer the questions that are on the next page on new applications on your initial professional. And when you get to the sworn statement, you'll read that, and then release of educational information, there's a button that says I accept with the box next to it. Click on that, because that then gives me permission to go in and finish your certification paperwork. Okay, the final part of this is, and this is a part that you can wait until closer to the end of your student teaching if you wish to, and that is to print off what shows up on your application online. Just print it off, and then attach a check or money order for $7 payable to UMKC, and get it to my office. My office is in the student services area. I'm back across the aisle from Dee. But give that to me. And the reason you do that is, I had a great example today. Someone called and said, Desi just sent me a message and said that I sent them a transcript, but it said issued to student, which is what would happen if, in fact, excuse me, that, in fact, if you request a transcript be sent to yourself and then you forward it to Desi, or even if you request it and send it on to Desi yourself, likely they're not going to accept it. In addition, if you decide to send your transcript to Desi, you then also need to contact every other school that you've attended and have them send an official transcript to Desi. Rather than having, 15 envelopes and paying $10, $15, whatever the transcript fee is for all of those institutions, if you send me the check for $7 payable to UMKC, I will be able to make copies of your transcripts that are all in your files and send everything as one packet to the state of Missouri, so that after I press the button accepting you and recommending you for the appropriate certification, then Desi will know that I'm sending materials, they'll get it, and then process it. Again, this is a new system. It went live June 1st, and I'm in constant contact with the 4 people who staff the certification office in Missouri. They are backed up. There are still a few candidates who were recommended back at the end of the May semester who still haven't been issued their certificate. So delays seem to be the password right now. It's taking some time. But they're very good, and I'm able to prod occasionally. But if you plan ahead of time and don't assume that we're just going to do it, because I won't just do it unless I know that you've applied. I get a list from, when I go online and it works, I get a list that shows me how many people have been or have applied and have noted that UMKC is the recommending institution, and it says either pending DESE approval if they've been signed off here, or pending institutional approval, which is me, my part, or it might say pending background check. Something you need to be aware of, you have to have a current background check when you apply for certification. And that means if you had one done in January of 2010 or 2011 and it expires in January 2012 and you don't finish until May of 2012, you have to do it again, because DESE will not process it unless you have a current background check on file. And again, you can click on the buttons on the web page and it will tell you whether they have it. They don't tell you your score on that. They'll just say elementary curriculum and assessment, and it will say passed, yes, or passed, no. And it will show every score that you've ever done for praxis. Okay, but that's initial certification. Again, check or money order for $7 along with printing out a copy of your application from the state website. Also, when you set up your account, if you've not done it already, choose a username that you're going to remember forever, because the state will use that forever. They also will expect you to remember your password. So try to to pick something that you're going to remember for a long time so that you're able to access your academic record. If a superintendent says, do you have certification, you'll be able to go right to the website and say yes. That's another thing that's changed. You won't be mailed anything by the state. I will mail you a copy of what I mail to the state so you have it, proof that you've been recommended for certification if someone wants to see that. But the state will notify you by email, which is why it's very important to have a current email address on the DESE website as well, so that they can notify you and they will tell you how to download a copy of your certificate. So you shouldn't have the excuse of, oh, I put it in the attic somewhere, I can't find it. You'll be able to get it online at any time. Okay, that's initial, initial for the state of Missouri. Several of you are very good test takers and have already taken a couple different tests. If you're secondary, you might have taken the middle school test for your subject area or decided that you'd like to teach physics even though you're doing social studies or something like that. Once your initial certificate is issued by the state of Missouri, you'll go to the same website and there's another of the menu items asks for additional or additional certificate. You'll click on that and fill that out and indicate that you've earned the certification or you feel you have through taking the praxis exam, and the state will issue it. But they will only issue that after you have been recommended for your first certificate. But you can add in the state of Missouri most fields by taking the appropriate praxis exam. Given that we are not very far from the state of Kansas, I would expect a great many of you will also be applying to the state of Kansas. Let me see if I have better luck with Kansas on here. Again, on the handout that you can pick up at the end, you'll be able to go right to this because I have the exact web addresses. And I have everything bookmarked in my office, so you can all write down that I am not having a great night. I will excuse it by saying that a non-insured driver pulled in front of me this morning and totaled my car, so it's been a long day. Anyway, Kansas certification. There's a website that you'll click on and it will go to Kansas licensure page, and the application you select for that is the out-of-state application. And that has nothing to do with where you live, but the fact that UMKC, the school that's going to recommend you, is not in the state of Kansas. That application has, I think, 11 pages, so it's very complicated, and more of the responsibility is on you than is on me for that. And some of it is that you will have to get an official transcript signed and not signed and sealed, sent to you by every school that you've attended. The exception being UMKC, where once again you will send me one of the pages from that application along with a check for $7 to pay for your official transcript. Kansas will not accept your other school transcripts from me, only the UMKC transcript. So you can start doing that now. If you know you attended 6 schools, it's time to write and request transcripts, and be sure that mom, dad, or your roommate doesn't open the envelope. You need to keep it sealed and put it in a little place where you keep your Kansas certification materials. They also will want a copy of your praxis scores, actually what you print off for your praxis scores. You need to have that in that same packet. There are fees involved in Missouri, or in Kansas. Missouri does not charge anything for initial certification. Kansas does. It's right around $40 at the present time. Kansas also requires you to have a background check, and they do not accept the Missouri background check. So just ask, when you get ready for graduation, ask for money, because you're going to need it. So you'll be doing the Kansas certification, or the Kansas background check. The application has several pages of instructions to begin with, and then it has several forms that say Form 2 at the top. There's one that's 6 pages into the application that says Form 2A. That is the only piece of paper I need from you for Kansas application. That and the check to pay for your transcript. Form 2A, you fill out the top and you sign it. I've had several people who've sent me what they thought was their application. It's a blank application. It's like, that doesn't help much. You have to print it off, fill it out, sign it, so that, again, I'm authorized to get your transcript and indicate the information as far as what you've been certified in and what you're being recommended for and so forth. Kansas, too, has the option of adding endorsements later on, and there's a different application that you use for that. They do not accept all praxis tests, so you can't become an elementary teacher by just taking that test. If you're a social studies teacher, you can't become an elementary or early childhood or special education. But there are other fields that you can add an endorsement in Kansas so that you'd be certified to teach more than one thing by using the praxis exam. Chances are, at least 10 or 15 of you will choose to go someplace other than Kansas or Missouri for your certification. Most states have similar application processes where they will have several pages of information. One of them will say something about institutional recommendation. When you get institutional recommendation, that means they come back to me, and I'm the one who signs off on them. I've done, I think, 32 different states thus far in my very long career here. There are some states that will require other things of you. The state of Texas has a Texas history exam. The state of Kansas, I almost forgot, has a second praxis exam. If you've not already done the principles of learning and teaching for the state of Kansas that's equivalent to your background, whether it's elementary, middle school, or secondary, you have to take one of those tests that matches your certification. So if you have social studies, you've taken that praxis, you've passed it. For Kansas, they also require that you take the principles of learning and teaching. It's another praxis exam, 7 through 12, grades 7 through 12. If you're an elementary teacher, you'll take the 1 through 5. But you have to have both of those tests, and again, both those scores in your packet of materials. Once I've signed off on your Form 2A and gotten your transcript, I will be mailing it to you in a signed and sealed envelope, signed across the back. That should be your final piece of information. You put it together, send everything as a packet to Kansas. If you send just part of it, they're going to ship it back to you, and it will delay your certification. So again, you gather all of these materials, as many as you can now, and then just be ready for that final document that will come back from me. Other states, as I said, some have different testing requirements, some have asked for a lot of questions. They want to know where you student taught, what you student taught, and so forth, and others just say, is this person a teacher? And I sign and say yes, and that's it. But again, you will be doing this. I do this for graduates of our program. I think the oldest of those was somebody who graduated in 1958. So it's never too late to apply to be certified somewhere else. You can always do that. The other thing about being certified in another state, though, is that most of them will require that you be first certified in the state where you did your or your education program. for that reason, even though you're not required to file for Missouri certification, I would say it is in your very best interest to go ahead and do it. Even if you know you're going to move to South Carolina in June, get your Missouri certificate, because chances are the state will want a copy of the certificate that you have from the state where you finished your program. Okay, I have all of my contact information and all of the web addresses you need for Missouri and Kansas. I answer my email at obscene hours of the morning, so feel free to ship any questions my way, and I'll try to answer them. And if you have any really pressing ones, I'll try to answer them here. Yes?
For background checks, I think we were like pressed to do one before, to apply for the school
Yes.
event before May.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, you'll be doing that for a while.
Okay, so how many background checks? Is that just an annual process?
An annual process until you're hired by a district, and then if you stay with that district, you don't have to do it annually. They'll do some checking, but the onus of responsibility won't be on you. It'll be more on the district.
Do you have to wait a year to that date or to do it again?
No, you can do it at any time. I wouldn't do it too long. I mean, give yourself as much time as possible. But yes, you can anticipate doing that several times in the course of your education and your first teaching jobs. Yes? Very back? Yes?
To do student teaching, we now have to have a substitute certificate, which requires the application said I needed fingerprints. And I talked to Fee about this, but
Right.
I didn't have time to send on the phone to PSE for an hour while we were waiting for them to answer. I'm assuming that they want a background check.
Right.
Because mine is older than a year.
Right.
But do I need to get fingerprints again? Because they already have a set, so I have to change. And do I have to use the same, I did an internship and there was a specific office that we had to use, and I can get a background check for about half the price at the state highway.
Right. Well, the state of Missouri has the one company that they accept background checks from, so you have to go through it to get your background. And even though you've had your fingerprints done, the one that's online, even though you have your fingerprints on file, just in case you filed some of them down, they'll want another set. So, sorry, trying to make light of this. Yes.
First question, you said we're supposed to go through you for all the transcripts. Is it okay if we've already contacted the institution?
Sure. For Missouri, if you want to do that, that's fine. I'm just trying to save you a little bit of money. If you have me do your Missouri transcripts, then you won't have to pay to have Longview and KU and so forth send you additional ones.
Your email
It's
address.
Chartel G, SCHARTELG at umkc.edu. And again, email and phone and all that stuff is on the flyer to pick up. Yes?
Since we send our transcripts to DESE for our sub-certification, the previous colleges that I've been to, am I going to have to send them again, or will
No.
we just refer back to them?
No, we'll refer back to them. But one of the lines on the education frame, I couldn't pull up, says verified, and it will have a verified date. The one issue I've had is some students who've jumped the gun thinking, okay, I finished student teaching today, time to do this and push the button, send things. Your transcript will not have your grades posted until about 2 weeks after the semester ends, and your degree statement possibly won't be there for 3 or 4 weeks. Until those things appear, don't do anything. Don't send anything to the state, because it will have to be resent once the degree statement is there. I also annotate your record to show that we've recommended you for elementary 1 through 6 or whatever's appropriate. So don't do that final transcript from UMKC. Have me do that. Yes? Sorry.
How long are certificates valid? I have one from last year, so.
I believe that they are continuous, but that's something you might email me and I'll verify it.
Okay.
Yes?
Well, I have a sub-certificate already, and it ends in 2014.
Okay.
So it's a year old as of right now.
Okay.
But I'm trying to sign up online, and it won't let me because it says it already exists. But they're wanting my new transcripts. So how, because I can't sign up the way that you guys are telling me to do it. It's not letting me.
Okay. If you already have a sub-certificate that's good through 2014, you have it, you don't need to do it again. It's already
Still
done.
wanting my transcripts, so how would I just?
I would print off your page when you get your profile, do that, and ask it to be sent with your transcript to the state. Yes, sir.
This is the first I've heard of certification for student teaching. Can you talk about that?
Well, and that's something I'd almost let Dee. She'll talk about it later or whatever. Okay, other things for me so they can get on with the program. Yes.
I was wondering if all of your classes that you take that pertain to education were taken at UOKC, they still need your other transcripts?
They went every single institution you've ever attended. So if you went abroad for one class and went to Arizona for one, you'll get a transcript from each of those schools. Yes?
Going along with that, what about if you did a dual credit class in high school? You have no clue.
The dual credit is the one exception. You don't have to get the high school transcript, just the college transcript that shows the credit that you received. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for your attention. And good luck, student teaching.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, for those of you who don't have my information, this is where it is. I am right across the hall from Gail, bottom floor right here in the back of the computer lab. I will send you this PowerPoint, so in case you need it, you'll have it. We have several new terms, and I have not yet got them concreted into my vocabulary, so you'll hear me refer to you as both a CMT, which is a cooperating mentor teacher. If you are supervising, we also used to call those supervising teachers. Teacher candidates is the new term for a student teacher. That's the one I'm having a really hard time getting used to. So if I refer to you as a TC, that is the abbreviation for teacher candidate. Teacher candidate is translated into student teacher. So we all know who is who. Then your final teaching internship is what we used to call student teaching. So all of you are beginning as teacher candidates in your final teaching internship, okay? So, whoops, how come I went backwards? There we go. All right, your cooperating teacher, mentor guidebook. Be honest with me, how many of you have looked at this document? Oh, I'm so defeated. Okay, it looks like this. You find it on the website. I also emailed it out to all of you, okay? You really need to look at this, okay? One of my frustrations as a principal were my teachers were constantly reinventing the wheel. And I'm like, you guys, come on, don't spend your time reinventing the wheel. Don't spend your time reinventing the wheel. This is a lovely little document that has all of your tasks and topics that you should be doing each month laid out for you. If you take 5 minutes each month and look at the one that says tasks for December, and you read through it and you go, oh, we can do all of those in this, and this way, you're going to have everything you need done completed. There's one that says January tasks. Look at it now so you know what you need to have done in January. The very next page says topics for discussion. Okay, these are your conferences. This is like your buzzwords. These are the things that you as a teacher candidate really want to know. Okay, and for cooperating mentor teachers, this is what you want your student teachers to know. See, I did it. Teacher candidates to know. Okay, it's all laid out for you. It makes sense when you look at the whole entire year. If you haven't looked at it at all, you probably want to go back and look through August, September, October, and November. You've probably covered a lot of it, but just make sure. And then the final thing that you really want to pay attention to is at the very end, there is a checklist. This is not by months, but it is your total checklist of everything you need to have covered with your teacher candidate or have learned as a teacher candidate. If you have those things done and you can go through your checklist and go, wow, we did all of that, you will be absolutely ready to take on your own classroom. Okay? So, Well, as ready as we can make you. So, this is what it looks like. Get online, okay? It's fairly easy reading. There's nothing that you have to get a dictionary or spend a lot of time doing. It's laid out just to be practical and easy to use. If going through that you find that it isn't easy to use or I've missed things in there, please let me know that. It's a breathing, living document. We want it to be useful to you. That's why we did it. Okay, your certification. This is something that is new this year. DESE is asking us if you are ever alone with students, and you should be, you need to have a certification. Their solution is to have a sub-certificate. So every student teacher who is student teaching in a regular public classroom needs a sub-certificate. Okay? For Missouri, that means you send everything to you send everything to DESE and you apply for a sub-certificate online. For Kansas, there's a second step because they actually issue a student teaching certificate, but that also comes from our office, and Gail and I do that for you. So there's not an extra step that you have to take. Just be aware that you'll actually have an extra certificate. For K-12, if you are art, music, or foreign language, you need to take everything I'm saying to you tonight as far as dates and realize that you have 2 sets because you have 2 8-week placements. That is also true if you are getting dual certification. If you're doing math and social studies and you're doing 8 weeks in math and 8 weeks in social studies, then you have 2 separate dates for evaluation and all of those deadlines. If you are doing dual certification and you are doing half day, meaning you teach math 1st through 3rd hour and then you go teach social studies 4th through 6th or 7th hour, then your dates will be on a 16-week schedule. Does that make sense? So you have to kind of keep in mind what certification you're doing and what your placements are if they're 8 weeks or 16 weeks. Okay, teacher work samples. This is more for the cooperating mentor teachers, just to be aware that every student teacher has a teacher work sample. It is similar, not exactly, but it's similar to a portfolio, and it will include things they did in the classroom in the fall, and then their culminating experience will be in their spring student teaching. They have deadlines. They, meaning your teacher candidates, have deadlines for those teacher work samples, and they'll probably be asking you for more information than just what's inside the regular classroom, because that kind of data is something they do as a whole class, and then we collect that data as a university. So just be aware, if they're talking about your teacher work sample, it's very similar to a portfolio. University supervisors. Everybody should have met their university supervisor by now. They should have been out for at least 1 visit, possibly 2 visits. In the spring, you will see them a minimum of 4 times. They will do 2 informal evaluations, a formal midterm evaluation, and a formal final evaluation. Okay? As a group, I would like you to determine your final evaluation and a final grade as 1 unit. So when you turn in your final grade, your supervisor, your cooperating mentor teacher, and the student teacher have all signed off and agreed on 1 grade. Last year was a little bit different, and we had everybody submit different grades, and then I'm going, do we average them? So it was kind of a weird situation, and when I started talking to the university supervisors, they're like, we meet with them and we sit down and we talk about it, and I'm like, well then let's come up with 1 grade. So it will be a group decision for your final grade. Okay? If you are doing 2 8-week sessions, you will see each of those people 3 times. An initial, which is informal, a midterm, and a final. Here are your dates. I will send all of this out to you so you'll have it in writing, but your 16-week placements, your midterm evaluations will be February 24th, and then your final will be April 27th. The one thing that I want you to caution you on this is when you look at your student teaching experience, I want it to make sense. So if you're doing a great unit and you want your midterm evaluation to be part of that unit and you end on February 16th, you can do that, okay? What we want to do is not wait till the end of March to do your midterm evaluation. So the date that's right in the middle, and that's exactly how I picked it, I just picked what was in the middle, is February 24th. If you do it February 20th, February 28th, that's okay. Have it make sense. Okay? For your 8-week placements, you don't have a whole lot of wiggle room. And you need to really watch your placements because you're looking at going in, taking over a class within a week. Your midterm's going to be within 2 or 3 weeks right after that. So it's going to be fast-paced and it's going to be quick. So you need to keep that in mind and be aware of that and kind of plan that so that it makes sense. Same with changing placements, okay? When you're looking at the end of your first 8 weeks being February 24th, if that's on a Tuesday, you don't want to stop and walk out of your placement in the middle of a unit. Move it to Friday, okay? If you have a culminating experience on the 22nd and you have a great ending activity, you can do that and then start your next placement the next day. But there's rhythms in classrooms and you want to make sure that your evaluations and your changing of placements fit those rhythms. Okay? We are not concreted into these dates just because they're at 4 weeks and 8-week periods. Does that make sense? Okay? The one word of caution is if you're changing any of those dates more than a week, please verify that either with your university supervisor or myself, just so that you don't get into trouble with not having enough continuous solo teaching days.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you talk about the like the evaluation days and like having them make sense, do you want them to be just this like incredible lesson, or like, because like if it's coming to the end of a unit, you know, that's like more prone toward like review and stuff like that. So like what kind of lesson would you say would be looking for?
For your evaluation, don't make it a dog and pony show. Don't go in and just specifically do this one lesson because your university supervisor is coming to see you, okay? Same with if you're a teacher. You don't want to get into the thing about you just go and make this great lesson just because your administrator is coming in to watch you. What you want to do is invite them to come in when you know you're doing a solid lesson that can showcase all of those skills that you need to show them that you can do, okay? So you don't want them to come in on a test day, because then they see nothing, okay? You may not want them to come in the very first day you introduce something because you're trying to do prior knowledge and get to know what the kids really do understand. So within that framework of that week or so that you have to work with, find a time where you can really showcase what your teaching abilities are. Okay? All right, teaching a full load. This is vitally important. And I think sometimes we think it's common sense, and then I get questions like, well, if I'm only teaching 3 hours, is that okay? So then I go, okay, we need to talk about it. Teaching a full load means if you are a regular, normal teacher in a district, what is the expectation for them to be considered a full-time teacher? Most people who are on a 7-period schedule for high school, normal teaching load is 6 periods. Okay? If you're on a block schedule and you teach 4 blocks, 3 blocks would be your normal load. Whatever they consider full-time teaching. Okay? If you have a situation where you are teaching outside of your content area for any of that time, you need to think carefully about that. Because for your certification, teacher candidates, you need to have a full teaching load for continuous days in your content area to be certified. If we can't verify that, we can't get you certified. Okay? That's why this is so important.
What about AP?
AP, we're going to talk about that. That's the next one. Okay? So full load means you're teaching a full day. Do you get plan times? Absolutely. Okay? If your teacher does a plan time and some kind of intervention or some kind of reading specialist or something that is considered normal and average for that school, that's okay. Okay? We just don't want you to have 2 or 3 plan times or 2 or 3 study halls, because that would not be what you need to get certified. Okay, AP, advanced placement classes, end of course exams, dual credit classes, all of those lovely things that high schools are now providing for their students. UMKC totally supports teacher candidates teaching those classes. Okay? There is nothing that says we don't want you to do that. Okay? What we need to do is make sure the district that you're working with is okay with that. We have some districts that are great, they totally support it. Some districts say, great, we'll support it if we can do co-teaching. Some say, not at all. Okay? So, if you're in that situation where you're teaching, and you're teaching AP or EOC, that's fine if your district's okay with it. Okay? If you're teaching and all of a sudden they go, oh, it's an AP class, you can't teach that, or I'll teach and you watch, that won't fly. Question? They're okay with it. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was told that KC1 we're not allowed to do end of course.
Oh, that would be new because I have, you know what, come talk to me then.
Okay.
How many hours are you talking end of course? Just one or your whole schedule?
It's just one.
Okay. If you have a situation where you are teaching 6 hours and one of those hours is an EOC class and your cooperating mentor teacher will work with you so that at least there's a co-teaching for that 1 hour, that's fine. Okay? 1 hour is not a big issue and not reason to panic. If you have 2 or 3 hours where your co-teacher or your cooperating mentor teacher is saying you can't teach or I can't leave the room, then we have a problem. Okay? The state expectation for certification is that you are fully responsible on your own for teaching a full load for a very minimum of 8 weeks continuous teaching. Okay? That's the bare minimum. We go under that and we're going to have a hard time certifying you. Okay? Now, UMKC expectation and what you would like to have is a full-time, full load, full responsibility for 12 to 14 weeks.
What happens if there's spring break or vacation time during that period?
We've counted that in.
Okay, well, my other question is, I have the midterm on dual credit, and I will have 4 days before my midterm, because we have, like, school for a week, so I'm getting incorporated into the school. Then we have spring break, and then I have 4 days and I have midterm.
For your second, then you'll move your midterm date back. The second 8 weeks is actually 9 weeks long because we subtracted a week for spring break. Not everybody's spring break is in the same time, so that's where you have that wiggle room. Your midpoint, you can move it up and back.
Okay, so I just moving the concept.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Did that make sense for those of you who are doing 2 8-week sessions? Okay. All right. Any other questions about AP, EOC, any of those lovely classes? Okay. If your teaching assignment changes, now at this point, I don't know of anybody that has called me in a panic saying my teacher schedule just got changed for next semester. But don't be shocked by it. Sometimes enrollment changes, sometimes things happen and principals end up moving people around at the very last minute. If it does change, the things you really need to watch are if it's more than 1 hour or you're totally out of your content area. Those are the things we have to be worried about. If they change levels, like they go from 10th grade to 9th grade, that's not a big deal. You know, if they go from algebra to geometry, that's not a big deal. Okay? It's only a big deal if you lose more than 1 hour out of your content area or if it's something not related to what you're being certified in. Full solo teaching expectations. And I think I kind of got ahead of myself and talked about this a little bit. So, alone in a classroom, that does not mean cooperating mentor teachers that you take off. Okay? It doesn't mean that you disappear and your teacher candidate never sees you again. It just means that they get to be in the classroom by themselves with students. Does it have to be the whole entire day, every day for 40 days in a row? No. Okay? You can pop in and out. If they're having issues with one class, you can go in and coach them through in one class, that kind of thing. But the overall expectation is that they have that time to really get their feet wet and stand on their own and learn how to do it by themselves. The last thing that you want to do is hold their hand long enough that they can't teach on their own. Okay? Every teacher and every person that has ever been a teacher had a time where they really had to figure it out themselves. That's what we want to do, is let these guys figure it out, get their feet wet, learn what to do while you're still there to support it. Does that make sense? Okay? January 2012. Most of the start dates will be January 3rd or January 4th. UMKC students, you start teaching the same day, or you start working the same day that your teacher goes back to work. Okay? Most districts have 1 day back for teachers before the classroom students come back. Once January starts, you are no longer on UMKC's schedule. You are on the schedule for your district. Okay? So, breaks, snow days, spring break, vacation, professional development, all of that is specific to the district you are working in. Okay? So, co-teaching, transition time, the first week or two is your transition time. In this time, now, how many of you, and I'm going to like the answer to this, how many of you did more than 60 hours in your fall placement? Yay, I'm so excited. How many of you found that beneficial? How many of you feel like that you are way better prepared right now than you were in September when you sat in this room? Excellent. Okay, that was the purpose of that fall practicum, was to get you in, get you learning, get you comfortable, so that in January it doesn't take you a whole month to feel like you can handle a class. Okay, so expectations for January. A week, maybe 2, to get in, re-go over the rules, kind of get into the rhythm again, and then you start taking over. Now, your takeover time is between you and your cooperating mentor teacher. Think about what works for you. Do you want to transition a day, and then you start co-teaching a day, and then you kind of transition the other day, back over fully, that kind of progression, or do you want to do it hour by hour? Either way is fine, block by block, however it works for you guys. Okay, but you want to transition so that by the end of the second week in January that you have been back full-time teaching, that your student teacher candidate is mostly in charge. Okay, so you're looking at about 2 weeks. Following that, and this is for a 16-week placement. Okay, 8-weekers, you need to do it in a week. Okay, so you get into that time frame, then that gives you plenty of time in the middle to where you can really work things out and move things around. You need to think about map testing, you need to think about any of those midterm weirdness things that come, conferences, any of that you have to take into consideration. So plan for those. Okay? Oh, snow days. Let's talk about snow days. I know the students are already praying for lots of snow days. I got 2 kids in high school, and that's what they want more than anything is snow days. It messes schedules and havocs. It's just, last year we had 10, sort of, because some districts didn't take off, some took extra, some made them up on President's Day, some put them at the end of the year. It was chaotic. So this is how we're going to manage snow days. If your district is off, then you have the day off. If they make it up, you make it up. If there are more than 4 days within your student teaching time that are not made up, so that you have 4 complete days out of the classroom, 4 snow days, then we need to add those on to the end of your experience. Okay? So, right now, you're slated to be done April 27th. if we have 6 snow days that none of them are made up, and they all have to be added on to the end, you get 4 free ones. So you only have to make up 2, so then you would be done with your student teaching 29, 3? Then, first, thank you. I was going, okay, how many days are in April? Yeah. Okay? Does that make sense? Because you get 4 free. After that, you have to tack them on to the end of your thing. Now, if there's 2 that you need to make up and your district decides that they'll go on President's Day, then you can make up the one on President's Day and you don't have to add it to the end. Then you just have to add 1 to the end. Okay? And it is okay if we have a lot of snow days. If you email me and say, figure out when my ending date is, we'll do that. Okay? That's what we had to do last year. It was chaos. Okay. When do you need to be concerned? And this is just strictly for teacher candidates. Okay? These are red flags. Okay? If you come in to me and you say, you know, you have several areas on your midterm evaluation that are just developing. Okay? On a scale of 1 to 5, those are like your 2s. Okay? You need to be concerned. And you need to get your act together and pull up those areas. Okay? Your midterm evaluation is your heads up, things are going well, and you're making progress. We don't expect you to be totally competent and proficient in a midterm. But if you're really struggling, then we need to put some support pieces in place for you. Do not wait till the end to let me know that. Okay? If you're still there on your final, then we've got some issues. So I want you to be aware of that. If you have areas on your fitness to teach, and everybody does a fitness to teach form, if you have areas that are really not acceptable, then we need to work on those. Okay? Whether that means you need to watch a different cooperating mentor teacher, whether you need to be pulled in, not pulled in, but I mean come in and work on some different skills, or whether you just need some different knowledge. Okay? Those are the things that these are ways to go, okay, this is how we fix it, and this is how you go on. Okay? They're learning points, so use those. Okay? If you are at the end of your 2nd week in January and you have not taken over, okay, that is a red flag. Whether that is the district or your cooperating mentor teacher or just your reluctance, something in there is not working well for you, and we need to know that. Okay? Sometimes it's a simple solution. Okay? Now, I know not one cooperating mentor teacher in this room would do this, but sometimes mentor teachers have a hard time giving over control. Sometimes they got to be coached on how to release and let go, and, you know, it's okay. I can go in there and I can talk them into letting you have a little more control, okay? But sometimes those things, so these are hot points, okay? It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It just means we got to figure a few things out, okay? So that's your 2nd one. Now, if your principal wants to see you and it is not because you're doing a great job, okay? That's kind of a heads up that something's not working, okay? Tell your university supervisor, call me, ask for some help, okay? Many times we can work a lot of these things out really easily. I've been in classrooms for 22 years or more. Most of it is just communication. Okay? Once we figure out what the problem is, we can fix it. But if we don't know that you're even struggling, we can't help you. Okay? Your university supervisors and myself, we are all here to make sure you do this, you do it well, and you are successful. That is our goal. Okay? If you miss more than 4 days, I really need to know that. Okay? Even if they're excused, you break your leg, somebody dies, you know, something like that, we still need to know that, because what I have to do is verify that you've had so many hours. If you've been gone 15 days and I don't even know that, then I don't have pieces in place to make things up for you. Okay? So just communicate. Communicate, communicate, communicate. I can't say that enough. What? Why do I keep going backwards? Okay. Successful completion. This is what we really want for you. Teach as much as possible, as long as possible. Okay? Already you have found out the value of being in a classroom more than somebody told you you had to. At the beginning when we started this in September, The bare minimum requirement that you had to do was 60 hours. And almost every hand in the room went up when I asked who's done more than 60 hours. And all of it's valuable, okay? If I told you you had to teach a bare minimum of 10 weeks and you went 14 weeks, you'd be 4 weeks more prepared than anybody else. So you have the opportunity to teach 16 weeks. Get in there and teach as much as you possibly can. Cooperating mentor teachers. This is your chance to do some really intensive, started to say therapy. I mean, well, you might need to do a little bit of therapy. Intervention with some of your kids that are struggling. When you look at your classroom and you go, wow, if I only had 15 minutes a day to spend with this one kid, what a wonder I could do with him. Use your student teacher, okay? By providing them everything they need to go in and take over your classroom and be successful in your classroom. That opens up the time and your energy to devote to those kids who won't have it otherwise, okay? So this is a golden opportunity for you to really make some strides in your own students that you wouldn't have if you didn't have a student teacher. Now I have to tell you, 20 years ago, when us classroom teachers got a student teacher, it was kind of vacation time. You know, we liked having a student teacher because, boy, you could get all your bulletin boards done, and you could go do some research, and you could do all these other things you never had time for. That's not the case these days. How many of you are classroom teachers? And when I said, picture that one person you could really help, how many of you immediately thought of somebody? Yep. Okay. This is valuable time for you to dedicate to those students. Okay? All right. Plan for gradual handback of responsibility. We talked a little bit about this in September. Those of you that have been in the classroom now, you've really made some good relationships with kids. You've bonded with kids. You're really getting to know them. When you're with them every single day and you pour your heart and soul into their education, when you start to leave the classroom, they're going to feel that. So, I'm sorry, she just pouted. She's like, oh, yeah, that's what it is. You know, when you leave that classroom, you feel like you're kind of leaving part of you. So they feel that too. And I don't care if they're seniors. Those seniors get attached to people just the same as a kindergartner does. Sometimes more so. When you really impact kids, they don't want to see you walk out of the classroom. So take some time to do some gradual handback. Okay, those last 2 weeks should look a lot like the first 2 weeks. So however you decided to transition from the cooperating mentor teacher to the teacher candidate, now you have to go backwards and hand it back. Okay, your transitions will be much smoother for all of you if you do it gradually and start handing back bits and pieces. Co-teaching is a great thing to do at the end of your internship. You know, when you're both teaching at the same time and you're both responsible and you're both interacting with kids, it can be very powerful. And it also feels much better for the students than just all of a sudden, here we transition back. Okay? It's really important if you have two different teaching styles. Okay? So if you're not clones of each other, you might want to think about that transition. All right, very last thing is if you are at the end, the last 2 weeks, and you're doing the transition back and you have a little bit of time and you want to go watch other really good teachers do a little bit different style or a little bit different presentation than what you've been able to do, take that chance, okay? Go watch as many of them that will let you watch. There is nothing, even after 20 years in education, I can still walk into certain people's classroom, watch and learn from them. Okay, so all right, questions and answers. Yes, ma'am.
So even though we are going to get the Missouri State Substitute Certification, on days when our cooperating teacher is gone, there will still be a separate substitute called in, and that separate substitute will still get paid for sitting there and watching a student teach?
Yes, that could happen. What she asked was if you have your substitute certificate and your cooperating mentor teacher is out and the district calls a sub in, are they going to sit there and watch you teach? Yes. If the district, and this is very much a district policy, it is not a DESE policy, because I asked specifically for DESE, if we have our students with sub-certificates, what does that mean? So DESE does not have a policy on whether you can get paid as a student teacher for substituting or not. Okay? What they do have a policy is you have to be with your mentor teacher. So if your district wants you to sub for your mentor teacher and pay you for it, that is okay. But the only person that you can sub for during your student teaching is your mentor teacher. You cannot, and I have to be clear on this, you cannot leave your classroom and go be a sub in another classroom during your student teaching. Okay? And you laugh, but I've been asked that. Yes, ma'am?
In terms of the handbook, there, like you said earlier, and there is a checkoff sheet of what we have to do each month. Does that coincide with our capstone class that we'll be taking?
No.
Like, does that, like, are those the assignments that we have to do?
No, they are not. She asked, does the checklist in your handbook, this thing, coincide with the assignments in your capstone? And no, they are two different things.
Okay, because my question was, because I'm a dual major, so I don't have a capstone for English. I'm only in capstone for math.
Well, this will be things that you will do no matter what your content area is. Okay? It's things like, have you had a discussion with parents? Do you know how to hold a conference? Can you make a phone call home about behavioral or academic things? And those will be the same no matter what your content area is. This is not content specific. This is based on the NCATE, which is our national accreditation for teacher education. This is what they want you to know. And it's any subject. Okay?
If we are sub-certified, what if we try to use this as a sub if our mentor teacher isn't there or our cooperating teacher isn't there, but don't pay us for that? How does that work? Because technically we'll be allowed to be in the room alone with them. If my cooperating teacher isn't there, they already have a really hard time with finding substitute teachers. So I just see that as a potential problem.
Well, you have to be there.
She has to be there with me.
You mean to count it as your student teaching?
Well, no, not to count it as my student teaching. I'm just saying, like, basically them getting free labor out of this whole deal.
Well, they're getting free labor out of you anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, they are.
I understand that, but when a district says that they won't hire substitute teachers or won't pay you for substitute teaching, yet they're using you as a sub, so, like, I don't find that very fair.
Well, and it isn't, but in order for you to be certified, you need those days. And so if
No, I know, but I'm just saying, is another sub going to be hired in her place?
Yes.
Or am I going to be used as the sub?
That's up to the district. Yeah, that is totally up to the district. Okay, let me do one caution. In the beginning, when you are just taking over, if your cooperating mentor teacher has to be out for more than one day, then I highly suggest that they get a sub for you. It just makes for transition. Until you are in and really solid with your kids, you want that protection of having another certified adult with you. Okay?
I see this a lot. Those of you who don't know me, I'm a supervisor. I'll come into a classroom and I'll see a teacher sitting in the back, and I won't know who that person is, and it will be the substitute for that day. And usually what I say to that person is, for all the miserable days you've had as a substitute, you deserve this one, okay? Because you're going to do a lot better job as a student teacher than the substitute would do. One other thing too, I suspect a lot of districts will require you, if you think you should be paid, to go through the employment process of being hired as a substitute. And that may or may not happen, I don't know. But usually just tell the substitute to have a seat or go somewhere and relax, because it's their time. And they more than deserve that day, I think. We see that a lot.
Yeah.
Just a comment, as far as districts, some districts have in-house substitutes, so they're not going to want to pay extra
Right.
to the student teacher if they've already got built-in subs.
Right.
That would just get flooded. So,
Yeah.
I remember my districts.
Yeah, and every district does something different with subs, so.
You may have already said this, but for the Kansas certificate, is that something we have to do online too? Because
No.
Okay, so it would just be that student teaching certificate from university?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Kansas is totally different in what they want you to have for certification. Okay. Any other questions? The one thing that I want to tell you, the one thing that will do more for you than anything else is communication. Talk to your cooperating teacher. Talk to your principals. Talk to the teacher next door. Talk. Okay? Communicate, ask questions, get it figured out. Okay? I have heard great things, and I do mean that. I have heard great things from you guys as a total class for getting in there and being in the classroom and seeing great things. So feel good about that. You're going to do a great job. We have one more question.
Sorry, everybody. But if something happens in the classroom, who is going to back us up? Or is the school going to back us up as UMKC, or do we need to do MSTA or the AFTA? Do we join something, or is the support us?
Well, it depends on a lot of different things. There is some valid, she's asking if something happens in the classroom, is it a good idea for you to be a member of an organization that provides that, not protection, what's the word I'm looking for?
Legal assistance.
Legal assistance. That's always a good idea for anybody. There is a discount rate for student teachers, so it's not that expensive. It's the same with your sub-certificate. That gives you some more validity, and that's one of the reasons they asked for that. So you would have the same coverage under that sub-certificate that a regular person would have. Okay? Any other questions? Thank you so much for coming on a Friday night.